After attending this video lecture, suppose you get a question in JEE Advanced or JEE Mains from ITF, and then you will able to crack the question. Now that becomes one of the property of yours. So if you have a property, then these inverse functions do have properties. So in this part, what we will do, we'll try to learn of more and more properties of inverse trigonometric functions, and we'll try to see their applications into the coming parts. So let's start with the properties, and in the meantime we'll try to see where and how we are going to apply these properties. So stay tuned. Graphical representation. So in this part we'll learn and see how to draw the graph of various paths, and if we have drawn the graph, how to understand and try to use it into the various problems that are going to follow in this chapter. So let's see. The first thing is y sine inverse x, and the domain for this function, if I'll say mod of x is less than 1. Why I have this, and the value of range that the function is going to give is minus pi by 2 to pi by 2. See, we all know that had the function been y is equals to sine x, the value that y will range will be from minus 1 to 1, and the value of angles that I can give into this x will be real. Now if I want to make the inverse function of the given one, which means I'll have to write x as sine inverse of y. So this is the exact situation, but in order to make it a function, as I've discussed earlier, I have restricted my value of x in order to be from closed interval of minus pi by 2 to pi by 2, because in that value it will strictly follow the definition of function and inverse is possible. See, as I know that the value that y can assume in case of sine is always going to be between minus 1 to 1, so the domain for this inverse function will become that, because what we have learned that whenever you are finding out inverse function, whatever was domain earlier, it will get towards the range, or whatsoever was range, it will get towards the domain. So this is what is the meaning and the difference in the basic plotting of inverse functions. So let's see how the graph of this function looks like. As probably discussed, the function of this graph looks like the same. In the x-axis we have values that will range from minus 1 to 1, hence constituting the domain of the given function, and onto the y-axis what I have the values that are angles, which is ranging from minus pi by 2 to pi by 2. Hence I can say that the range of the given thing is from minus pi by 2 to pi by 2. But one thing is missing over here, and that is how to get these values. Now see, what I have done, if I have had the sine inverse in terms of normal sine, I can say that I would have the function like this, right? Because this is how the sine is going to look like from pi by 2 to minus pi by 2. Now this was x and this was y. See, I am trying to find out its inverse function, so whatever earlier was domain will be range now, and whatever was range will be domain now. So it's quite clear to me that whatever was x earlier, it is y now, and whatever was y earlier, it's x now. So in order to get that into this thing, I just need to do one thing, which is I have to convert my x to y and y to x, right? And that can be done very easily if I'll just rotate it pi by 2, because if I'll rotate it pi by 2, x will become y, y will become x. And once you do that, you will see that the functionality that you have will exactly look like this. So this is what is the graph of sine inverse x, and this is how the curvature of the function is. Moving further, now I have y of cos inverse x, where mod of x is less than equal to 1, and the value that the function is going to give is from 0 to pi. Now why this? Suppose we had function y is equals to cos x. I know from the definition of cos that y is going to range from minus 1 to 1. Now this is y earlier, now it will become x, hence quite obvious the domain of the function will range from minus 1 to 1, which is it is, right? So which means our understanding of the function is quite clear. But as we can see, the cos x looks like this. It's not like this. this is the sin x. The cos x I'll just superimpose it over here with a different color. The cos looks like this. So this point is 0, this point becomes minus pi by 2, this point becomes pi by 2, and this point becomes pi. It will having a minus value of magnitude 1. Now I can say that although I could have used any interval which might be present over here, but because of the standard convention that we all are using, I have used this interval 0 to pi. Hence, the graph of the cos inverse x, which is also written as arc cos x, is going to look like this, where the values on the x-axis are going to range from minus 1 to 1, while the value onto the range side will always be onto the positive part of y-axis in terms of angles, because the range of the function is from 0 to pi, and this is how the curvature of cos inverse is going to be. Moving further, now see y equals to tan inverse x. X belongs to real and y belongs to minus pi by 2 to pi by 2. Let's understand this. So we'll go by step from the very basic. If y had been tan x, what I can say that y will never had been equal to pi by 2. Why? I have the reason. Because tan x is what? Sine of x by cos of x, and we all know that at cos pi by 2 the value is 0, and whenever the function is real and it's defined, 1 by 0 is not a practical and real definition. Neither 1 by 2 nor minus pi by 2, neither pi by 2 nor minus pi by 2, any of these values are not going to entertain in the value of tan. So what I know that value of y is never going to be from minus pi by 2 or pi by 2, as it is evident from its graph also. If I will draw the graph of tan x, what I can see that there are vertical asymptotes at pi and minus pi by 2, which I can draw very easily. So this is how the function of tan x looks like. So this is the vertical asymptote at pi by 2, and this is also the vertical asymptote at minus pi by 2. So in the value of range I can have the complete infinity, because values are ranging from minus infinity to plus infinity. So y earlier belongs to the real part, hence I am finding out the inverse function. So x in the inverse will be ranging to real part, and as you can see, in the range of minus pi by 2 to plus pi by 2, it is covering all the values and they are not equal at this point, hence the range in this case also will be the same. So this is how the graph of tan inverse is going to look like. Parallel to that, the value and the figure of tan x is given, which I have just drawn over here. You can draw the analogy from over here. Let's see, they don't have done something very superfluous or rocket science. They have just rotated it. If you try to just rotate that, you will see that you will easily get the value of inverse function. And there is one more property of inverse function. As you all know that inverse functions are symmetric about y is equals to x line, right? So what you need to do, you need to draw a line that is y is equals to x. And if you have drawn it properly, the inverse function will be the image of function given along in the line y is equals to x. That's the value of the inverse function, and that is how practically what we can say we can find out the inverse functions. Next is y is equals to cot inverse x, and x belongs to real apart from some values which are excluded, apart from some value, and the range that it is from 0 to pi. So we'll use the same analogy, same principle in this case also, and by doing the basic calculation, as suppose y was equals to cot x, and what do we know? Cot x is nothing but 1 over tan x, which means by the time tan was 0, cot x will not be defined at that point. So x equals to 0 is not permitted, right? because if x becomes 0, y will become 1 by 0, hence it is not possible. So you can see that in terms of y, because x was having this issue of not becoming equal to 0, so y will never be equal to 0, as it is quite evident from this fact that x equals to 0 is an asymptote rather than a closed interval, which is also evident from the values of range. And this is how we analyze the different inverse trigonometric ratios and functions. Next will be the cosec inverse x. As you know very well that cosec x is nothing but 1 over sin x. So as sin x, mod of sin x always is less than equal to 1, so cosec x will never be lie between these two values. So see, you can see the whole region, the region between minus 1 to 1, it's quite empty, because 1 by 2 will only occur when the denominator is equal to 2. When I know this fact for sure that the denominator is always less than 1, the values that I'll get will always be greater than and equal to 1, right? Equality will come at the points where cosec x will be equal to sin x, and that is, I think, at angles pi by 2 and minus pi by 2. At these only points we'll have the equality of the value as 1 and minus 1 respectively. As in all other cases, there will be no graph between this region, and it is quite evident from here also. Now coming to the range part, sin x cannot be equal to 0 for cos x to be defined, hence this is not coming up into the range part. Sin x cannot be equal to 0, which also can occur at x equals to pi. So which is also evident from this part that I don't have equality onto the values of 0 and pi. So this is how generally we quite try and understand the basic inverse trigonometric ratios and functions, and with this understanding we'll try to inculcate this into the various parts and applications of the chapter. Last but not the least is y is equal to sec inverse x. It says that mod x is always greater than 1. Based on the same analogy, that y equals to sec x is nothing but 1 over cos x. Repeating the same things again, that as mod of cos x is always less than 1, hence sec x will always be greater than 1, right? So this was, I am into the part of range for the normal function. So for the inverse function, this part will come into as domain, hence in the domain you'll have values which is always greater than equal to 1. Coming to the range, I can say that x cannot be equal to pi by 2, because as soon as x becomes pi by 2 or any odd multiple of pi by 2, cos x will vanish, and if cos x vanishes, sec x will not be defined, so we won't do anything that will create hindrance into the existence of sec x. Hence you will see an open bracket around pi by 2. It will not be included into the function, and the graph for sec inverse x will look like this. Again, considering the same point, same value, that there won't be anything which will lie in between minus 1 to 1. This part will be vacant. The equality might occur at the end points, which it is doing at this point as well as this point. So these are the small nuances that you have to keep into mind whenever you are defining inverse trigonometric ratios. Inverse trigonometric ratios is a very simple chapter if you have the understanding of what is domain, how to define it, how I am going to equate the thing which is onto the left hand side or the thing which is onto the right hand side. If you keep these factors into mind, inverse trigonometric ratios is a very easy chapter and a very fun chapter to understand. Now let's do an example. The question says, find the domain and range of sin inverse x. And you have seen from the graph that sin inverse x is a value which ranges from minus pi by 2 to pi by 2, where the x that can take as will be from minus 1 to 1. But here it's a bit of difference. I have something in square brackets, and from normal referencing knowledge I know this represents greatest integer function. So this greatest integer function is from between minus 1 to 1. So from this knowledge I think I can say that x will belong to equal to from greater than minus 1 and then just less than 2, because if it becomes equal to 2, the greatest integer function on this side will become 2, which I don't want. So the ranges of the domain that I can think of will be from closed interval minus 1 to 2. So this part will be the domain, right? Now this becomes much more interesting. If I'll put in domain to this, what are the values that greatest integer function is going to assume? So when x is from minus 1 to 0, it will assume the value of minus 1. When x is from 0 to 1, it will assume the value of 0. And last but not the least, when x, this will be equal to 1 when x is ranging from 1 just less than 2. Now in actual totality you have 3 values for greatest integer function of x, that is minus 1, 0 and 1, and only these 3 values are going to be input into the function of y equals to sine inverse GIF of x. So in order to find out the range, I can say that I have sine inverse of minus 1, second value is sine inverse 0, third value is sine inverse 1. So these are the 3 values what will be there, and hence we'll get towards the range of the given function sine inverse greatest integer function of x. This is how we use graph into questions. We try to understand what was the domain of the function, what could be the possible range, or what can be the possible methods that I can put in towards finding out the answer. So keep a strong hold onto all these concepts and watch them again and again in order to understand how they have been drawn. Stay tuned for more parts onto the inverse trigonometric functions. So the properties studied into this part, are they going to be the useful properties for you? Have you learnt enough of them? Will you be able to crack questions from them? These are the certain questions which we will try to answer in the coming videos of the inverse trigonometric function. But mind you, in this part, do try and understand whenever we have something onto the left hand side and whenever we are comparing it onto the right hand side, the range of values and the domain for which they are present has to be equal. So if you can understand this small point of this chapter, the world is yours, and I can bet you that you can crack every question on ITF. So based on this positive attitude, we'll go towards the next part in which we'll learn simplification of certain equations which will involve ITF. So stay tuned for more parts. See you over there.